Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video we are going to look at a product from the company shootersgate.com. If you're not familiar with shootersgate.com, they do offer AR setups of different various types, different components, things like weapon lights, and in today's case, well, we are going to look at an angled foregrip. So the people at Shootersgate reached out to see if I'd be interested in looking at one of their products. And again, here today, this is the Serious Tac AGC. So an angled grip with a laser, has a nice bright flashlight on the front, 1600 lumens, 320 meters of throw, that green laser. But the key and the interesting thing, which sort of differentiates this from other angled grips, it's an interchangeable grip, which I'm really curious about. I could see this being amazing. I could also see this having failure points. And I'm curious about the adjustability and the ability to add different angles in my shooting experience, but also what it might mean about the durability, the toughness, and the ability for this to actually survive out in the field. Now, I'm not going to do any crazy testing. I'm just going to give you my general sense. We will be using my Ruger PC carbine today, which is my sort of best go-to, where it has the sort of guard on the front and the ability to leverage the M-lock adapter. I'm hoping this is going to work out well. I do have to find myself a chunk of pick rail, which I have on the top. I'll swing that around to the bottom. We'll attach this grip up. We'll go through it in detail. I'll get to some practical shooting, and then after all that, we'll come back to the studio and I'll give you my final thoughts. And so with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now, before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Shootersgate who did provide this for review. And so as we get into this, again, the Serious Tac AGC, angled grip laser and tactical flashlight. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, different features from other angled foregrips. I've used a lot of angled foregrips in the past. We will do a quick rundown here on the specs, because for me today, this is a little less about the light and the laser and a little more about the grip itself. But here, the high mode, you can see here, 1600 lumens, the low mode, 300 lumens, and then a strobe at 1600 lumens. This ends up with an overall runtime of about 72 minutes, which is awesome. So that's not bad. In the high mode, you end up with about 5 hours. In the low mode, keep in mind the fact that this does leverage an 18650 battery. You can also use two CR123s, but I would not necessarily suggest that you do that. You end up with the laser feature and a pretty nice setup. Now, this is a beefy light. As you take a look at this right away, you can see this thing is substantial. It's not a small flashlight by any means. And as you take a look at the bezel, a nice clear reflector, literally zero orange peel. This is going to be a beaming monster. This ends up with your strike bezel on the front, switch on the bottom here. So laser and flashlight mode. The grip itself, which has interchangeable angles, so that's going to be very interesting to see how this performs. And then ultimately, side switch here. So we'll probably have to charge this up. Let's see what happens, how I get to the battery here. Which, as you take a look at this on the side, here's your quick release lever. So we're going to flip that open, and as soon as we do, the actual head of this light comes out, and this is a standalone flashlight. So that's very unique and interesting. You end up with a USB Type-C recharging port. That's pretty standard these days. And we should have the ability to get into the battery compartment now. Which, yes, it's removing the film. Taking a look at the battery. Serious Tac battery. This looks exactly like an Olight battery. If you've ever seen an Olight battery, literally same color, same everything. That is funny. 3600 milliamp hours. This is a 3.6 volt battery, translating to 12.96 watt hours of power. I do like the fact that this is its own self-contained flashlight, which is pretty neat. So we are now active, you can see, and leveraging that side switch. So laser here, flipping the switch, light and laser, and just the light itself. This does have a battery indicator. So as I turn this on, it is red, showing that it probably needs to be charged, which I will do. And that will get this thing ready for field use. But the grip itself, now this is the largest grip here, and in terms of the angle, you can see that there are two other angled grips which shallow that angle out and then basically almost minimize it entirely to just a little bit of a hook. So depending on your needs or what you like, there are a couple of different ways you can go. And this does come with the tools that you need. So let's see what it takes here. We should be able to just swap out this grip. Just removing this screw, pulling that down, putting the next one in. There are little indexing tabs, so index that in the proper location. Putting this back in and tightening it back down. And this is what I'm saying. I don't think there's going to be too big of an issue here. However, this does introduce a potential failure point. And you can see just missing the screw there. Now, do I ultimately think there's a high probability that this screw's going to fail or this piece is going to crack off? And if it does, how detrimental is that? Probably not a huge deal, but it is something that I think is worth mentioning. So especially for people that are going to be using this in a sort of more heavy-duty role, this might not be the best. I would have to think that for the general shooter, this will be just fine. And so as the flashlight itself is charging, we'll get the grip mounted up. I've got myself a piece of pick rail on the guard. And the nice thing is this mounts a little more forward. You can see the actual PC carbine itself has just a little bit of a ramp there, but that's tight. That keeps my arms a little too short and the ability to get this now more properly adjusted. Now there is a set screw here, and again, you're going to leverage this quick connector clamp on the front to tighten down the front. This will tighten down the back and hopefully stay on here just fine. Again, this does come with the tools that you need, so that's nice. Fitting up nice and firm, that feels really good. The clamp, again, will have to be loosened to get that flashlight back in. And the other thing that I'm going to note is it does appear as though I'm going to easily be able to swap out these grips during my shooting session without removing the entire grip from the handguard itself. So that is definitely nice. Now, one thing I'm going to point out right away, this grip is massive. It's just gigantic. The overall footprint is huge. You can see how far down off of the guard itself it actually sits. So my hand will be way down here versus up here. Now, I don't think that's going to be a problem, and if anything, this and its overall size should allow me to nicely pull the rifle into my shoulder pocket and not have too many problems, but it's just an observation that is a very large angled foregrip. But once that light takes a charge, we're going to get out to the range. So with that, let's get out there and get to some practical shooting. And so now, back from the range, I do have to say this Serious Tack AGC Grip has been great. It was really good. A couple of key points, I think. First off, the large grip insert is definitely very large. It's a little bit oversized in my opinion, but I was definitely able to get a nice grip on it, pull the firearm in. I used it, you know, obviously you saw for some zeroing, which didn't do it justice. But at the same time, you know, I did get it upright, pulling the firearm right into my shoulder pocket, working very well. But what I loved was the ease of swapping this out, the ability to actually get on this with the tool while it was still on the rifle, and I didn't have to disassemble the entire thing. So that was awesome. I do have to say the medium was just about right. Probably my favorite grip of the three. Again, getting a nice positive grip, pulling the firearm right into my shoulder pocket. Good and firm, yet not quite as oversized. I feel like it's just more suited to just an appropriate size. The angle is slightly different. You don't have quite as much pull as on the large, but at the same time, I was able to get my hand not only, you know, partially, you know, around the grip itself, but then again, you know, up onto the guard, which worked out fine. And then last but not least, the slim, that's really the most efficient of all of these. Probably the most suitable in terms of the overall size. Has that nice pronounced ledge where these are good, but you don't have that hard ledge. So you're still kind of pulling, and your hand does potentially want to slide past the guard, but on the small, that's a pronounced guard. You can really get a good hard lock on that. So I think I actually shot the best with the smallest grip, which could be counterintuitive, but I think after thinking about it a little bit more, that actually makes sense because it does have that most sort of protruding guard. It's the slimmest, in my opinion. It looks the best. So, I mean, I think if I had to pick one, I would keep the small on here and not really change a thing. Then beyond that, you saw for the bulk of my shooting, I actually leveraged both the laser and the light. That was for testing purposes. Of course, I didn't need the light outside, but if there was going to be a failure, I wanted to be able to see it. So leveraging the laser and the light, that worked out well. And I do have to say, this performed great. The laser, I could get it nice and dialed in. I didn't even have to look at anything. I was pretty sloppy with the overall placement of the rifle for the most part, and that was intentional. I did that intentionally to see how effective the dot was. The dot did not seem to wander. Now, I do need to point out a couple of things. First off, the adjustment screws have no indication of, you know, up or down on the elevation or right and left on the windage. Not a big deal. You just have to figure it out. It's pretty standard to other optics and other sort of sighting and weapon devices. So if you're familiar with other optics or other flashlights or lasers, it's pretty much the same thing. So you'll figure that out pretty darn quick. Second is the screws are a little bit soft in terms of there's no tactile feel, and their springs are just a little bit soft. I would like a little more of a firm turn or even that tactile turn if possible. But again, they didn't seem to loosen up. I don't seem to have any problems, and overall everything worked effectively. And the only other criticism that I have is the dial for the mode. It just feels cheap. It could have felt premium, and instead it feels cheap. The rest of this feels robust and rugged and, you know, pretty strong and sturdy, all things considered. But that switch is just a little flimsy feeling, and I'd be afraid as to how long that might actually survive. The buttons are awesome. I like how they function. Pressure switch, if you lean into it and let go, both sides, which is awesome. So whether you use your index finger or your thumb, so that works out very well. And when you quick press, it stays on. You can cycle between the modes while the light is on, so that's cool. And I think overall, this is a pretty neat product. And of course, we already talked about the fact that you can actually take the quick coupling off the front, pull out this light, and now you have a standalone flashlight, which is just so unique and interesting. Double press here, That does give you the tactical strobe, so you can see here that strobe function. It is an oscillating pattern. Press it again, turning off. So again, quick double press. That is that strobe. And let's see if that's doing it with the laser. From what I can tell, I can't really tell. I don't think that has the laser at all in there. I really don't think it does. It's very difficult for me to tell, but I'm going to say no. So anyway, all in all, I mean, a real cool product, the Serious Tac AGC model. Very nice. So again, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Shooter's Gate who did provide this for review. If you like what you see here, look in the description box below for all of the relevant links for where you can find your own products from Shooter's Gate. And if you like this content, do me a favor. Take a look at my Outer Limitless channel, which is more on my primary gear. On that channel, I cover everything from hiking, camping, and backpacking excursions, all the gear that goes with it. So from sleep systems, shelter systems, knives, axes, backpacks, flashlights, you name it. That's my Outer Limitless YouTube channel. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.